Welcome. Council acknowledges the Wadawurrung, the traditional owners of the land, and I pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging, and also to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in our Geelong community today. This meeting is being broadcast on the internet and the recording of the meeting will be published on the Council's website. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for tuning in. As you can see, tonight's meeting once again is being held entirely online, with all councillors dialed in via Zoom. This is the safest way for us to conduct our meetings at the moment, and it doesn't change anything as far as the debate or the decision-making process is concerned. And for the community, it doesn't change a thing either, given that we're all streaming online as usual. We just appear a little bigger than we normally do in the chamber, which is probably not necessarily a good thing for all of us, but you can actually see us a little more clearly, so that's probably quite good. Huge thanks to the Geelong community for your ongoing commitment to limiting the spread of COVID-19. It's been absolutely fantastic. We know it's tricky, it's hard, but the tally of the active case numbers is dropping, which is fantastic news. So as challenging as it is, your efforts are definitely having an impact. So please remain vigilant, stay the course, remaining at home as much as possible, wear your face mask. Everybody seems to be wearing face masks, which is great. And physically distancing yourself from others, of course, ongoing. And if you do experience symptoms, it is a really important message to get tested straight away, please, and then isolate at home while you're waiting for the results. This is really important. That stops that community transmission. And we know this period continues to be tough, particularly on people on their own and small businesses and various cohorts within the community. So please be kind, look out for each other and remain as positive as you can. So on that note, we'll begin the meeting. Are there any apologies to note this evening? I don't think so. I think we're all here. Are there any requests for leaves of absence upcoming? I think we've got 3 more meetings after this one until we go into caretaker mode. So I think everybody's probably going to try and attend these last ones to make sure we get through the work we need to do. Confirmation of minutes. May I please have a mover and seconder to confirm the minutes of the council meeting held on the 28th of July, 2020. A mover, Kylie Grisbeck. Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Seconded, Councillor Mason. Thank you very much. All those in favour? Thank you, carried. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest in relation to tonight's agenda? I believe we have a couple. Councillor Contel. Thank you.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I've got a conflict on item 1, Amendment C395, being the settlement strategy for the Northwest Growth Area. One of the stakeholders within the report is a significant customer of the company of which I'm a director, and as a result, I'll be declaring a conflict and stepping out for that portion of the meeting.
Okay, thank you, LaContel. We'll actually put you in the waiting room on Zoom during that period when we have that discussion. So thank you. And I believe there was another conflict to be declared. Councillor Manane, thank you.
I have a conflict of interest in relation to one of the confidential matters. Around past engagement and association, so I'd like to declare a conflict there, please.
Thank you, Councillor Manane. That's great. Same thing. You'll be popped into the waiting room while we discuss that one during the confidential period. And if any conflicts arise during the meeting, just please make them known. Thank you. Public question and submission time, the next agenda item. We've received 4 questions and submissions for tonight's meeting. They're actually all questions, and each person has now received a response also by email. It's also important to note that each councillor does read each question and the answers in full. We won't read them out for the purpose of this meeting, but for the record and for the sake of transparency, they have actually received a reply, and those replies will be published on the city's website. We had a question from Jacqueline Edge about neighbourhood amenity and the urban forest strategy. We had a question from Carolyn Bird about neighbourhood amenity, from David Liliev about the Ovoid Aqueduct, and from Cameron Steele about the Fynesford Quarry. So as I said, those people have received an answer, and the answers are published on the city's website, and they will also be published in the minutes of this meeting, which will be available by Friday this week. Do we have any petitions? Sorry, Councillor Murray.
I was just going to say, Madam Mayor, Jacqueline Edge also had a question in relation to the traffic at Elizabeth Street in Geelong West.
That's right. There was 2 parts to that question, weren't there?
Yeah, 3 questions.
Yep, great. Thank you for making that point. Okay, any petitions tonight? Don't think we do. Okay, so straight into the reports. Item 1 is the Amendment C395, the Settlement Strategy in Northern and Western Growth Area Framework Plan, consideration of the panel report and adoption. To be moved by Councillor Aitken and seconded by Councillor Grisbeck. Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Get to come off mute, Councillor Aitken.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. Before I do move it, I actually wish to draw attention to a correction to the wording in the recommendation, Mayor Asher. I've been advised by our Director of Planning that the recommendation should actually say attachment 8 instead of attachment 9. And in the sectional reports, it also should say refer to attachment 8. And that correction is needed because that's actually wording that's contained within the motion that's been presented before us tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. That change will be made. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Look, it's my pleasure to actually move this recommendation before Council tonight. There's actually two components on it. One is in relation to the City of Greater Geelong settlement strategy, and the second one is related towards the Northern and Western Geelong growth area framework plans. Both of these amendments have gone before the independent panel, and they have made recommendations to the Council tonight. And essentially, the independent panel has endorsed the Council's position in relation to both of these major pieces of strategic residential development zones within the City of Greater Geelong. What both of these amendments do entrench that the City of Greater Geelong continues its reputation both nationally and at a state level to be a place of desire to live, work and play. The settlement strategy actually has been several years in the working, and it actually identifies throughout the whole municipal-wide our housing needs until 2036. And what it does do, it gives confidence to those people that live in the Ballerina Peninsula that we will have a framework to address the significant growth that has occurred in that particular part of the City of Greater Geelong. It ensures residential development occurs within the designated settlement boundaries throughout the City of Greater Geelong. It facilitates infill development to increase the contribution of supply within the municipality. And importantly, it also directs the majority of future housing to the in urban Geelong to infill Armstrong Creek and the northern and western Geelong growth areas. The second component of the amendment that we're proposing to adopt tonight is that of the Northern and Western Geelong Growth Areas Framework Plan. It cannot be underestimated the significance of the decision that Council is making tonight. This is the largest greenfield project in regional Victoria. The decision tonight in adopting this particular amendment to our planning scheme essentially is creating a 110,000 population increase of the City of Greater Geelong. Both Kylie Gresbeck and myself are proud that the Northern and Western growth zones currently will be existing within what is known as the Windermere Ward. This decision tonight will be shifting the central focus and future growth and investment of the City of Greater Geelong to our northern and northwestern areas. This is a significant strategic development for the City of Greater Geelong, and one that those of us that have a strong voice for the north and are very passionate about. This changes the focus for the whole of Geelong to focus on our northern growth, and importantly, it practically increases by 50% our population. I'm looking forward to working with the development community and the council officers to ensure that we continue to work to meet the significant sustainability design frameworks that we've put in place associated with this particular amendment, and to make the northern and western growth zones one of the most significant livable areas, not just within Geelong, but within Victoria and Australia. The decision tonight also entrenches the establishment of Lake Moorabool at the quarry site at Finesford, which is the largest body of inland water that will exist within Victoria in over 70 years. A significant piece of infrastructure change for Victoria, and I'm proud that that's actually occurring in Geelong. And we will be able to see yachts, we will be able to see rowboats, and we will be able to see other water recreational activities occur on that particular lake. So I now endorse this document, encourage all councillors to strongly support it as well too, and I look forward to the new Geelong that these amendments actually bring forward tonight, Asher.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Councillor Grisbeck.
Madam Mayor, if I might just reserve my right at this stage.
Okay, absolutely. Who else would like to comment on this one? Councillor Manane. Just need to unmute yourself, Councillor Manane.
Sorry about that. I think one of the important things to note here is what a fantastic job our staff have done on this major piece of work. It's no small effort to carry out a piece of planning of this nature, and very, very strongly they were complimented by the panel for the quality of the work, the futuristic nature of it, and there are some recommended amendments, but overwhelmingly it was accepted by the panel, which I think is a great credit to our team. Just a couple of small items I would like to mention is for the Armstrong Creek residents who believe that they could be adversely affected by the current work of DELC and the Surf Coast Distinctive Area and Landscape Program. It is worth mentioning that this C391 amendment has taken all of those other planning matters into account. And following the approval of this amendment this evening, the Council will embark on a program of logical inclusions. And upon the completion of that process, the long-term boundaries of urban Geelong will actually be completed in that part of the city. An initial description of that process and the likely timeframes around that are now available, and any resident who has been sort of waiting for this point relative to the work that this framework's done, the Surf Coast Distinctive Area Framework and the Natural Inclusion Framework, all that is now coming together, and we can give some level of certainty around for those particular residents. The other item is just worth commenting on is that the inclusion of the Boral land as an investigation area. It is important for these investors and landowners of these significant parts of our city to have some comfort around long-term planning. It may not be exactly what they'd hoped for, but it is now included, and I hope that in time those organisations are able to plan ahead and be able to see that their asset does and will feature strongly in the further development of Geelong. So well done to the staff. I think it's a great credit to what's now been achieved.
Thank you, Councillor Manane. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor Asher, and I'd like to endorse everything that's been said, including, and to quote, that the panel complimented our staff and that the city position as being well thought out and visionary. This amendment's also supported by the council and state government policy to refocus long-term growth away from the Ballerina Peninsula. And I'd like to add that some important components and a lot of considerations being given to the level of affordable and social housing in the future, and combined with awareness of employment opportunities. And there's really an overarching biodiversity conservation strategy as well, where environmentally sustainable design action plan will contribute to a zero carbon for the city. And just to finish off, I'd just like to conclude about the Ballerina Peninsula again. And this settlement strategy provides policy direction towards permanent settlement boundaries. It's not the intent of this amendment to lock the boundaries in now. This will be done by the DAL, the distinctive areas and landscapes for the Ballerina, and if necessary, a separate consultative process for the district towns will be undertaken for the statement of planning policy. And I strongly recommend support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd also just like to state just what a fantastic and comprehensive document this is. It presents a great vision for Geelong in the areas we are moving to in the north and the northwest. However, this does not just affect the people in those areas. This document affects all citizens of Geelong in regards to how our suburbs and townships are developing and where we are pushing and directing development, appropriate development to. As stated, the Ballerina has been an area of great expansion for the last 10 years, and to have some comprehensive document like this, which helps us take all this new development which we're going to need and put it forth in a vision in these new corridors, is of great confidence for our residents. The document supports our town boundaries, which was set in 2018, but as stated, the distinctive areas and landscapes document will provide hopefully further protection. But on behalf of all citizens of City of Greater Geelong, this is a fantastic document, and I'm looking forward to seeing its full implementation.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Mansfield, then Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. Look, as has been said, this settlement strategy outlines how we're going to manage another 110,000 people coming into our municipality. And I think there are quite a lot of people out there who, although they understand the benefits of growth, are understandably a bit nervous about our population growing so significantly over this period of time. And, one thing that I think we've all learnt over this process is that while we can't stop growth, we can manage it, and this settlement strategy really outlines a plan for how we can do that in a way that is hopefully going to be sustainable and create livable communities for the people who are living in these areas, as well as taking pressure off some of the existing areas within our municipality, in particular the Ballerina, which has experienced a lot of pressure in terms of population growth over recent times. There are some really notable objectives within the settlement strategy. In particular, we have an objective that most people living within the area can meet most of their everyday needs within a 20-minute walk, cycle, or public transport trip from their home. We've also got the objective of designing carbon-neutral neighbourhoods, protecting and enhancing the river and creek systems around that area, and also protecting and enhancing biodiversity. This sounds fantastic. I think the real challenge will be translating that into meaningful actions and reality. A population of that size needs substantial infrastructure. Our municipality is already challenged with trying to deliver, and maintain, upgrade the infrastructure we have for our existing population. So having adequate infrastructure and as well as going over and above and developing these, really self-sufficient and sustainable communities. It's a fantastic goal, but it will be a significant challenge to see that turn into reality. It's one that I hope we'll see, but we will need to, ensure that we put in place all the various measures to support those objectives if we want to see this actually happen.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've seen a huge change in the landscape of Geelong in the last few years, and this is going to continue into the northern and western areas. Armstrong Creek, we started a few years ago now, and we see the huge popularity of that area now and the vast areas that are growing quickly through Armstrong Creek, Charlemont, Warralilly, through Mount Dunedin. And these are continuing today with really high demand through that area. So it's reasonable to expect that demand will continue through to the north and western areas. So the precinct structure plans that have been put in place, the work that's been done to date has been substantial, independently assessed and viewed, with many experts casting their eye over it to give advice as to how best results will be obtained, and that advice will no doubt be closely followed into the future. And as we see in Armstrong Creek, the quick growth of education precincts with the schools, sporting facilities taking off there very quickly. So this will happen, I would suggest, very quickly in the north and western areas as well. So our planning today is critical as to how we're going to create that, how it's going to look, how people are going to interact and move through those areas. So the planning today, which has been done so well, led by Gareth Smith in our planning area, they have to be congratulated thus far. The work's been huge, as has been the attention to detail. So we'll see great development there, and I think the Armstrong Creek development thus far should give us confidence that we'll see good development out in the north and west. And I think also we'll see that continued infill development through inner suburban areas of Geelong and into the CBD, which we have to brace ourselves for as the demand increases for our region and our environment here. So I guess I just forecast the demand won't slow down for our region or our environment. We just need to make sure we adapt accordingly and we set the right precinct structure plans in place and we adapt accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Any other councillors wish to comment on this one? I'll take a moment just to say this is a really huge moment, I think probably as much for the councillors of the North and West as it is for the councillors of the Ballerina as much as anything, because the development on the Ballerina, I know that's certainly something that the community down here is very aware of, and we've had 40% of all the development over the last decade on the Ballerina, and to see that now shifting to the northern western areas of Geelong is great for all concerned, I think. So as councillors Mason and Sullivan have said, this isn't actually locking the boundaries, but it's certainly a very good step in the right direction, and it's the first of a series of situations where people can actually work towards making sure that those townships are locked in and are quite discreetly contained within the fixed boundaries. So I want to say particular thank you to Gareth Smith and the team, notably Peter Smith and Jess Hurst, who are also on the screen tonight, and of course our CEO Martin Cutter for wrangling the whole thing. It's been a really a very big project and a very big undertaking, and it's very well done by everybody. So outstanding effort. If there's nobody else, we will go back to Councillor Aitken to close. Councillor Aitken.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, can I just follow up with my second?
Sorry, Deputy Mayor. Right. I forgot you reserved your right.
That's okay. Thank you, Mayor Asher. Just in wanting to thank you, my fellow councillors, for what they've said about this. I think if I split it into two sections, so the settlement strategy is everything that everybody has already said. It is a thank you to the planning staff that have done years and years of culmination in years and years of work. It is probably, in my view, the most significant policy document. These two documents together is probably the most significant planning policy that we will do as this council, and maybe even from the former councillors and maybe even the future councillors. I think this is a one in a decade type of opportunity that we have as councillors. In terms of the Northern Western Growth Area Framework, as Councillor Aiken has said, it is the biggest greenfields project in regional Victoria, and we should be very proud of that. I think if you think about 28 days of independent panel hearings and you think about 102 submissions, what I want to say is thank you very much to all of those community members, those landowners, those developers, those council officers, staff, and all of the people that contributed to those 28 days. I think we've got a really good outcome, and I think it's the most significant engagement that the council has done in a planning space. And so I'm very proud of them. I think if we think about 2036, by the time we start to get these things, the population of Geelong will be more than 390,000. And so we really have to be cognizant that when we release these big growth areas, we need to make sure as a council and as developers that we can deliver the infrastructure that is required to build these new communities and also look after the current communities that we have. So I think this is a really good balanced approach in terms of the Northern Western growth areas and the release of those particular areas. And I know that the plan is for the PSPs to go from one from each section first. And I think basically this will now be submitted to the minister if it is passed tonight, and hopefully that'll all be wrapped up, ready to go so we can get on with the growth in Geelong. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Very well said, Madam Deputy. Now I'll go to Councillor Aitken to close.
Thank you very much, Mayor Asher. Look, and thank you to all the councillors who spoke favourably of both these significant pieces of strategic policy work that the council's doing. I too wish to thank not just our current strategic planning staff, but also our past as well too. Nate was actually a big driver of both of these documents before he moved on, and certainly a number of other staff members that were past employees of the City of Greater Geelong, because these two documents have been around for quite a few years in terms of their development to get us to the point where we are today. I should also mention that, look, it's not without its challenges. To be able to link 110,000 people in the new Geelong with the old Geelong is actually going to cause, we are going to need state and federal government support for that, for both the road networks and most importantly, the public transport networks. And without the state and federal government support, it's pointless having the new Geelong if there's no way that it connects with the old Geelong. So that's going to be a significant challenge, not just for the council, but for the state and federal governments as well to try to do that. And we should also acknowledge as well too, the COVID environment that we are now in is going to have an impact on this. It may possibly slow down the original projections that we had for both the settlement strategy and the northern and western growth zones, simply because the investment market has significantly changed. So we may have to do further discussions with our land developers on how we activate that development in the COVID environment that exists. And we also should acknowledge that our projected population growth will be significantly affected with the COVID environment. Australia, we're not producing enough babies, and I'm not going to tell everybody to go out and have one for the new growth areas of Geelong, but we need to have more children, unfortunately, so we can take advantage of all this urban growth. But our immigration has practically moved back down to levels that are unheard of. We were around 80 to over 150,000 migrants per year, and under COVID, we're actually dropped to around 30 and 40,000 projected population increase associated with migrant intake. So that's going to have a significant impact on these two growth zones. What we have to continue to do is to make them so acceptable, so desirable and so sustainable that we keep the interest of the investment community, we keep the interest of those people that want to live in those particular areas, and importantly, we keep the interest of the state and federal governments to help provide the significant infrastructure and public transport and road networks that are needed to link New Geelong with...
Very well said. Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Nice rallying cry for procreation there. Well done. So we'll put this motion to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Quite a big moment for the City of Greater Geelong. Item 2 is another big one, the Amendment C393 Retail Strategy, consideration of the panel report and adoption, to be moved by Councillor Sullivan and seconded by Councillor Mason. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Lovely. So, yeah, we have before us report to consider the Amendment C393GGEE, the panel report, and adopt the amendment. Review of the 2006 Retail Strategy led to the adoption of the City of Greater Geelong Retail Strategy 2016 to 2036 in 2018. Council, acting as a planning authority, then initiated Amendment C393 GGEE, the amendment, to implement the key elements of the 2018 Retail Strategy into the Greater Geelong Planning Scheme. The strategy supports expanding or redeveloping existing centres over developing new centres. The document also identifies the need to prepare master plans for several retail centres, including Belmont, Separation Street, and Shan Avenue. The proposed amendment would implement the key elements of the strategy into the planning scheme, but wouldn't rezone or apply overlay controls to land. It would introduce new objectives and strategies, an updated retail hierarchy, and application of floor space caps to sub-regional centres and centres in growth locations. Exhibition of the amendment in April and May 2019 resulted in 14 written submissions, These submissions were received from a range of retail and land developer businesses with interests in the Geelong region. Many of the submissions supported some part of the amendment, but not many to other parts of the amendments. The submissions were considered under delegation on last year, where it was resolved to refer all the submissions to an independent panel appointed by the Minister for Planning. The panel confirmed the importance of Geelong's activity centre hierarchy policy and was supportive of the use of floor space caps for the sub-regional and growth regional areas, which I mentioned earlier. Following this, a panel report was received by council officers in January and was released to the public. The panel recommends the amendment be adopted, subject to some minor policy changes. The report doesn't accept the panel's recommendation to extend the proposed boundaries of the Kingston Neighbourhood Activity Centre to include both the Commercial 1 and 2 zoned land. This is due to concerns that a larger centre would be inconsistent with the role and function of a neighbourhood activity centre and would strongly compete with the Ocean Grove Town Centre and the Leopold Sub-Regional Activity Centre. According to the report, a large centre would possibly redirect investment away from those centres, which is one of the last things we'd want in our fantastic Ballerina. And with that, I'll move to the recommendation, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Your sound just lasted through there. It was a little tetchy, but it actually did last, so that was good. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you, Mayor Asher, and thank you, Councillor Sullivan. I hope I don't repeat too much of what you've said, but maybe with the dodgy sound it might be good. Certainly this amendment applies to the entire municipality and changes activity centre and retail planning policy only. And it replaces the 2006 retail strategy, which is now outdated. So I want to emphasise that this amendment does not rezone or apply overlay controls to any land. And as Councillor Sullivan said, the retail hierarchy is a long-established policy, and in detail, it involves regional retail centres, town centres, sub-regional retail centres, neighbourhood activity centres, restricted retail centres, and more. So it would be very interesting to study this hierarchy in detail. And the amendment was exhibited in April and May 2019, and as Councillor Sullivan said, there were 14 written submissions from a range of retail and land developer businesses. A panel report was received by council officers in January 2020 and then released to public for further development, for further comment. And the independent panel has supported the amendment's major strategy. This is continued application of the municipal hierarchy of retail centres and the use of floor space caps to manage growth area and sub-regional centres. And for example, it accepted the Warn Pond Sub-Regional Activity Centre proposed boundary location and floor space cap of 47,000 square metres. So within overwhelming agreement between the city and the panel, there were 3 areas of contention. The panel recommended an 11,000 square metre cap to be applied to the new Kingston Neighbourhood Activity Centre in Ocean Grove, where the city's initial recommendation was 8,700. This increase was accepted by the city. And then the proposed boundary of the Kingston Neighbourhood Activity Centre was to be extended. This was not fully accepted, and as Councillor Sullivan said, the city prefers to extend the boundary for commercial area more aligned to bulky retail instead. And so the panel concluded that an acceptable case might also be made for review of policy which supports the future direction of the Leopold Sub-Regional Activity Centre. The city accepts that a 30,000 square metre floor cap can be applied in part to review the centre's planning controls, but within the confines of the existing Leopold settlement boundary. And so it's important to note here that Amendment C395, which we've just approved, notes that the distinctive areas of the landscape program, the DAL, is the most appropriate way to review the long-term settlement boundaries for townships on the Ballerina Peninsula. And the city supports this view. So city officers have committed substantial time and resources to this retail strategy. I commend them for their good work and am pleased the panel has reached similar conclusions and endorsed the overall.
You've hit mute, Councillor Mason. Have you finished?
Madam Mayor, I think he's gone over his time.
Okay, great. Okay, the alarm. We didn't hear the alarm. Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Thank you, Councillor Mason. Well said. Anybody else want to comment on this particular item? I think it's been very well articulated by the two Ballerina ward councillors and planning portfolio holders. Back to Councillor.
I might just make a quick comment.
Councillor Contell.
Look, just very briefly, just like with all of the these types of initiatives, where we have stakeholders, particularly retailers, property owners, those that make a living out of the locations that we're talking about, it's imperative that we continue to communicate with those to keep them abreast of the changes that are occurring. Because whilst we see these things coming through all the time and become quite familiar with them, we sometimes neglect the fact that many don't have the time to be reading the realms and realms of documentation that some of these changes have. And it's not until it has direct impact on them that they're aware of that. So I really urge our officers to ensure that once we've had this flow through the processes of this evening, should it be adopted, that we once again go out to those who are directly impacted by the changes and communicate with them in a manner that they understand what's to come, and also give them opportunity to continue to provide feedback into the future.
It's an excellent point, Councillor Contell. Well said. Anybody else want to make any comment on this one? No. We'll go back to Councillor Sullivan to close.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to all my fellow councillors who spoke on the topic. It may not seem like much to some people, but Councillor Contell is certainly correct in his summarisation. Neighbourhood centres, activity centres and shopping precinct centres, they really are a heartbeat of our society, and how we structure them is incredibly important in the bricks and mortar of what we're doing here. So I'd like to thank everybody who had involvement in this document. It's thoroughly comprehensive, and I endorse the motion. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. I'll put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Excellent. Item 3 is the endorsement of City Hall Conservation Management Plan, but I believe this matter is being withdrawn by the Chief Executive Officer. Martin, would you like to comment on this one?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, this item has been withdrawn tonight due to an error identified in the report. It will be represented at a forthcoming future council meeting. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. CEO. Okay, we'll move on to item 4, the endorsement of Colac Otway Shire joining the Geelong Regional Library Corporation, to be moved by Councillor Nelson and seconded by Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report recommends council votes in support of the Colac Otway Shire joining the Geelong Regional Library Corporation. The Geelong Regional Library Corporation provides library and information services to all residents and visitors of the City of Greater Geelong, Borough of Queenscliff, Golden Plains Shire and Surf Coast Shire. And it's governed by a board of 7 members of these councils. In June this year, the board unanimously endorsed the Colac Otway Shire joining the corporation as a member in principle. All members need to endorse the move for Colac Otway Shire to become a member of the Geelong Regional Library Corporation. I'll leave it to my fellow councillors to have their say. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Councillor Sullivan, would you like to add some more?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Nelson has said it all quite nicely. I'd just like to talk to some of the results if this is endorsed. Potential advantages for the city include increased community access to around 41,000 collection items, strengthened collaboration and delivery of shared library services, reduced costs due to sharing of regional administrative costs, huge benefit of a library corporation. Greater state government grant contributions will be received. And just on that note, as we maybe people will know, Libraries are not a service that bring in money, or they're not profit orientated. This is a service we bring to the community as a benefit, because libraries, as we're all big fans of, bring nothing but positive contributions to our community. And also bring it about enhanced strategic planning, capacity building, and expertise to our corporation. So with that, I'll second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Anyone else want to comment on this one? Councillor Grisbeck, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It just proves that, libraries are, in my personal view, an essential service to the community, and it's great to see that Colig Otway, that they're going to be brought into that corporation to just broaden the access for community members. I think libraries have definitely taken on new meanings since, many years ago that we used to just go to the library to borrow a book, but now they have a lot far-reaching services, and it's great to see that Colac likes the model that the Geelong Library Corporation has, and thank you to my fellow councillors for supporting that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Murray.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and just quickly like to endorse those words that the fellow councillors have said in relation to this. And what it is the recognition of the great work by the GRLC and Patty Manolis and all her team there, and especially during this the last few months of the COVID-19 time, some of what they have available for the public. But it's recognition of the great work that another library wishes to join the corporation. So it's good news for everybody.
Indeed it is, Councillor Murray. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. And I'm the fourth of the four COG councillors who are board members of the GLRC, and I fully endorse this recommendation. There's no doubt that the amalgamation of resources will provide economy of scale efficiencies, and it really is of mutual benefit to both parties. And just one little thing I'd like to add is that the comprehensive Colac Otway mobile library services are another example, and will certainly support the outposts in the Ballerina and in Windermere. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Any other comments? I'll just quickly, as a former library board member, I'd like to just say welcome to Colac Otway. I think it's been talked about for quite a long time, and it's really good to see them joining in. So that's fantastic news, and I fully support this recommendation as well. We're going back to Councillor Nelson to close. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, thank you to all my fellow councillors for their support on this. As chair of the library, this is obviously very important to me, both from the library board member, the library chair, but also personally. 3 years ago, libraries were closing in Geelong. 3 years on, we've opened another library in Leopold. We're opening another library in Armstrong Creek once we get that built, and now we're getting Colac Otway Shire to join us. So this is a testament to Patty Manolis and her team, and to my fellow board members, and especially in these times of COVID with the restrictions. Libraries are even more important to our community because it gives people things to do. It's not just about books, and our library team are working flat out as hard as they can to get the services across the municipality, and it's a credit to them in these difficult times. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. So all those in favour? Those against? Motion's carried. Well done. So item 5 is the 2020 to 2021 loan borrowing provision of $45 million, to be moved by our Finance Chair, Councillor Aitken, and seconded by Councillor Grisbeck, Deputy Chair. Thank you, Councillor Aitken.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. Look, this is to advise the community that Council will be going into the market to borrow $45 million for the 2021 financial year. Now, this may scare a lot of members of the community and also councillors that are frightened by financial numbers. But this is because we've actually got a significant investment that's being undertaken by borrowed funds, which is the building of the new council administration offices in Mercer Street. And what the community should have confidence in is that the cost of money is the cheapest it's ever been in the world at the present time. And it is prudent for us to be in that marketplace, to be borrowing money and maximising the return that we can get for the community for investments. What we do have to be conscious of is that it doesn't become like the Market Square, which was a fantastic asset that the council, the former City of Geelong, built. But once interest rates started to increase, it actually, that particular investment became an albatross around that particular local government instrumentality. So it's not anticipated that interest rates are actually going to increase to that same level as what they did during that investment of local government. But and that's why the community should have confidence that we, as the council, have the servicing capacity to be able to borrow $45 million. And we also have the operating and expenditure review capacities to be able to pay the interest associated with that type of loan as well too. So it is prudent for the council to be financing in this manner, and I endorse the recommendation tonight before councillors to borrow $45 million.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Oh, there's a bit of going on in my background, sorry. Councillor Aitken has given a very good overview of that. I think what I would just like to say is that these borrowings for 2021 are really proposed for the civic accommodation and the LED street lighting and smart controls project. Obviously, the civic accommodation project will be funded part by some asset sales as well. And I think Councillor Aitken has pretty much said it is the lowest borrowing amount, interest amount at the moment. It is prudent for Geelong to really take advantage of that. We want to make sure that we are balanced with our borrowings versus income, and that is that the officer's recommendation here is one I fully endorse. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Any other comments on this one? Councillor Contel?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, whilst I'll support tonight's recommendation, I'm sure everyone appreciates that the amount that we're looking to borrow is $41 million and could be glazed over quite quickly. And I know in discussions with Councillor Aitken, he's very appreciative of the commitment that Council are putting into this and the future burden that this will put onto council. And whilst Councillor Aitken is absolutely right, interest rates are low today. We all know they will not remain low forever and a day. And whilst it is of this council's mind to borrow this amount of funding for, in part, building the civic precinct, that's not to suggest that future councils may have a different view on that. And we have discussed ownership models for the civic precinct into the future. And owning the building is not the only model out there. And whilst that might be the start of its life, anything could happen in the future. And we know that there are many organisations out there, some of those being in Geelong, that occupy significant real estate in our CBD and choose a different operating model, which is to engage in long-term lease and use their capital funding for other investment and operating cost and opportunities. So happy to support this tonight, but it is a significant burden that we're taking on. It's a responsible decision, but going forward, future councils might have a different approach and different mindset in what's being decided tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Contel. Councillor Manane.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Just very simply, there are some standard rules around investment, and when money's as cheap as that, you use other people's, and when it's dear, you use your own. And it doesn't get any cheaper than it is at the moment. In fact, interest rates are currently at the lowest level in 100 years. So it makes a lot of sense for us to borrow this money at this point. And in fact, at the interest rates we're able to get, in effect, you're actually borrowing cash flow at the cheapest rates. It's no different from buying a building or buying anything else. You're actually borrowing security for the future. We have the opportunity as a local government to borrow a fixed rate over 10 years. So this is a very, very sound strategic move at this point, notwithstanding other comments that have been made. At this point, this is a very, very strategic move for us to get in now while rates are at this level and to secure our future for at least the next 10 years in terms of cash flow. So fully support the proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Manane. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it's also got to be stated that a couple of the main reasons we're actually doing our civic accommodation while we're taking this financial process. Talking about consolidating 7 or 8 current sites that we've occupied around the area. So with rents and leases that we won't be paying, they'll be invested into the property. The consolidation of staff being together in the one building. We'll see our productivity and our efficiencies increase dramatically. It'll be a far better experience for the community to come in and engage with the council and the councillors in the one building. And it'll obviously be a 21st century building, 6-star rating. It'll have all the amenities that are required. It'll have open space for staff and community. So I think the community should be rightly very excited by what's going to be presented for them and they will own. As to what happens in the future, I think let's just build it first. Look what it does for the community before we start thinking about what we may do with it. Let's just enjoy the ride while we're going through it, enjoy the benefits that are designed to be for the community and make sure we maximise that. And as Councillor Manane has said, now is the time to do it. We've had a long discussion, community consultation, and I think we've come up with an unbelievable product with our Indigenous contribution and our community contribution. I think we should be rightly proud of the work done thus far, and I think they'll be proud, the community will be proud of the building we create for them that they will use. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Any other comments on this item? Back to Councillor Aitken to close.
Yeah, thank you, Mirasha. Yeah, look, thanks for all the comments that councillors made. Most of them actually were about the civic accommodation building as opposed to borrowing, giving officers the authority and the CEO to borrow the $45 million. But it is appropriate that councillors did speak about the council administration offices that are being built, because that's actually what $40 million of the 45 is actually being used to borrow towards. And I actually agree with Councillor Contel. We do have to have that debate about a future stage about ownership and whether it is the right type of asset that we want in terms of the broader community benefit. I'm sure that the community would rather have $100 million spent in their local areas than have $100 million spent on a administration headquarters in the CBD of Geelong that has limited access to it for the broader public. So let's borrow the money. Let's take advantage of the interest rates and the environment that currently exists at the present time, and we can have the debate another day about future ownership models of an office building that's being built by the city in the centre of Geelong.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. That is a good point, that we must stick to the item that we're discussing in future and not deviate off to talk about other things. Okay, so I'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Terrific. So item 6 is the Regional Renewable Organics Network, to be moved by Councillor Nelson, I believe, and seconded Councillor Contel. Thank you, Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report recommends Council give its approval for the City to participate in Phase 2 of the Regional Renewable Organics Network, which aims to transform the region's organic waste into renewable energy and other recycled materials. The project looks at using existing water and sewage infrastructure to convert organic waste into energy and soil fertiliser products. This would reduce the amount of waste being sent to landfill, cutting greenhouse gas emissions and lowering our energy costs. It's expected once this is up and running, it will create 20 jobs and drive a bit of economic growth. in our region. I'll just pause there and let other councillors speak.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Councillor Contel.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, this is another excellent project that once again demonstrates our care for the environment. It's also very much in line with the first principles of our sustainability framework and also our circular economy thinking. It's one of the reasons that I was really keen over the last 12 months to jump in the role of chair of the environment portfolio. It's these tangible types of projects that council are now engaging in, such as we've talked about before with some of the road initiatives that we've also engaged in with reuse of plastics, with reuse of waste. That's really exciting. And as Councillor Nelson has already indicated, the Regional Renewable Organics Network project really seeks a regional solution to divert organic waste from landfill and then use this waste to dispatch into renewable energy and soil fertiliser. So as most would be aware, food organics is a significant source of greenhouse gas emissions, and Councillor Nelson already alluded to that. So our community now has been in tune with this for some time, and they really have been encouraging us to develop and introduce a food organics collection service. That's what this is intending to do. So in order to continue to reduce our carbon footprint, to reduce our emissions, to build on what I refer to as a sustainable Geelong, we need to continue to be innovative, and that's what this is about. So I couldn't be more pleased as the chair of the environment portfolio that we're taking these proactive steps and that we're taking these steps in this space, which is to protect our environment and to care for our environment, but also to create new employment opportunities and new business opportunities that will inevitably roll out of these types of initiatives. So tonight, it's really important that we support the continuation of the Regional Renewable Organics Network projects so that the CEO and the officers can continue to explore what's now been started in phase one.
Thank you, Councillor Contel. Deputy Mayor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. One thing I just wanted to say about this project is that this is Barwon Water will facilitate the delivery of this network, being the investigation lead. But what is really good is that this is G21 councils and even Wyndham City Council will participate in this regional collaboration. So it is really good that we're working with our partners to the north of us, the biggest growth area in the state at the moment being Wyndham Council. So I really look forward to that collaboration.
Good point, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Harwood. You need to unmute, Councillor Harwood.
Yeah, apologies. Thank you. A good point made in relation to our strong commitment to the environment in seeking new thinking and advancing our technology. It wasn't that long ago, sitting on the Barwon Regional Waste Management Board, that we explored anaerobic digestion as a potential renewable energy source and what that might mean, but we were unable to to bring that to fruition. But here we are today with a really good partnership with G21 and some neighbouring councils to now actually make this particular project happen. We're going through a trial phase led by Barwon Water, but this is a really good collaborative project that I think will pay big dividends for our whole region, in particular reduction of our landfill, which is a critical point that we're facing at the moment of the lifespan down at Drysdale. We know that's under threat from a time perspective, so this will certainly assist as we explore more options. Obviously, we'll have reduction of methane releases as such, but it's a really good opportunity for us as a region to look at renewable energy opportunities and what they might look like. And with proper due diligence and exploration, I think we can be leaders in this particular space. So it's an exciting project coming up, and I really look forward to the results and advancing what we actually establish. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Well said. Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. As other councillors have said, this is, a very exciting project. For the 3 years that I've been on council, one of the things that I have been asked about the most is what we can do to divert food waste from landfill, and what more can we do to support the community to prevent that food waste going to waste. As has been pointed out, food waste going into landfill is a significant problem in terms of carbon emissions. It breaks down into methane, and that's a very potent greenhouse gas. Currently, about 33%, so a third of our general waste that goes into the red bin is organic waste. The other thing about it is that it's a resource that could be used for something else. It can be used as fertilizers and put back into our environment for benefit. So there are lots of different approaches to this. We can support small-scale household organic waste diversion through things like worm farms, composting systems, community composting systems, but that still won't deal with a lot of the problem, and we need to find a solution on a larger level to deal with the rest of that food waste. Other councils have looked into this, but and we've been looking into this for some time. Many barriers have existed, in particular the costs, both financial and environmental, of transporting our waste to other facilities a long way away, this project really offers us the opportunity to develop something locally, so we won't be dealing with those costly, those significant transportation costs and additional carbon emissions that come with that, and have something in our own backyard that we can use, our own collective backyard that we can use to deal with this significant problem around food organics. As has been said, this is phase 2 of a process that's being undertaken by Barwon Water and a number of other partners within the region. What will happen after this is that what this involves will be analysis of 3 potential options that have been already identified in phase 1, and the best ones will be assessed as part of a business case, and the final decision for council will come before us, before council early in the new year. And so I really look forward to seeing what comes of this. I'm hopeful we will end up with some sort of outcome, because the community has been crying out for this for years, and we have a great opportunity here to deliver on that.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Any other comments on this one? I'd just like to commend Barwon Water on the work that they've done, and certainly in getting that collaboration happening with the G21 councils and Wyndham as well. I think that's been fantastic. So it is very much the power of the collective with this one. So it's well done. So back to Councillor Nelson to close.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. Not too much. I think everything's been said thus far. I just wanted to thank again Barwon Water and G21 councils and Wyndham Council for getting on board with this, in the hope that we can divert 70 kilos of landfill per resident per year, just in food scraps alone. So a council such as ours with 250,000 people, and Wyndham and the other G21, it's a lot of waste going into our landfill that doesn't need to be.
Indeed. Okay, this is a good one. Let's put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Okay, the next item, not dissimilar on the same theme, is item 7, household waste service reforms. Again, to be moved by Councillor Nelson and seconded this time by Councillor Aitken. Thank you, Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report recommends Council allocate $10,000 towards a transition plan for a move towards a 4th bin or equivalent waste service, allowing to meet the requirements of the Victorian Government's new circular economy policy. The City of Greater Geelong's existing 3-bin system sees glass included into the yellow bin and green litters for garden waste only. So At present, food waste is not recycled, and as we've already heard, that's around 34% of waste going into landfill, which is just not acceptable. So we need to transition out of that, and as everyone said prior, think of new ways to be doing things. And just wanted to get my stats up there so I don't say the wrong thing. Glass is 23% of what goes into landfill, and cardboard 16%. So we really need to be looking at these things along with our food waste to be a lot more sustainable than we're currently being now, because as we all know, Drysdale has got about 6 years left in it. So we don't have any other place to put our landfill, so we'll be needing to come up with other solutions. So this is one of those.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Councillor Aitken.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. Look, first I wish to congratulate Councillor Nelson for his leadership in this particular area of the City of Greater Geelong. Under Councillor Nelson's leadership in household waste, we've actually got some stability back into that particular area again. It's very quickly that the community and councillors move on from the debacle of household waste in Geelong and Victoria in particular, with the SKM collapse and the impact of the collapse of the market associated with the banning of recycled plastics and other products being sent to China. And we've now got a bit of stability in that sector and responsibility that we have. So thank you, Councillor Nelson, for what you've actually contributed towards that as well too in your leadership in this particular portfolio area. But look, as a deputy in household waste with the City of Greater Geelong, we have a responsibility to have a waste and resource recovery transition plans, and that's what's been presented to us tonight. It's we're fulfilling our responsibilities in a statutory sense to the state government to develop these particular plans. We've got our 2020 to 2030 Geelong War on Waste strategy plan, essentially, as I call it, and that's ultimately what we want to try and do in the City of Greater Geelong in terms of curbside collection and household waste is we don't want to increase the bins to 4 to 5, which is what's actually is happening in an operational sense. The greatest achievement we can have as a council is actually to reduce the amount of waste that goes into bins. And that's actually the challenge for all of local government. It's not about having 4 bins, 5 bins, 6 bins or 7 bins. It's actually significantly reducing the amount of waste that every single individual in the City of Greater Geelong actually creates. And the way we do that is through less packaging. And that's going to be a whole focus with the federal government and the state government to try to reduce the amount of packaging that actually ends up in our waste. We talked before, and I didn't speak on the last item because food waste is actually the largest component about what the Geelong community is actually putting in their bins, and we've got to get that out of our bins. And the other area, of course, is we have to do more recycling. Recycling isn't just taking something from your house, putting it into a bin with a yellow top on it and going, I've met my responsibilities as a recycler. Recycling is actually what responsibility you're taking yourself to actually stop it before it goes into the bin. And that's a significant reform that individuals in Geelong need to embrace and adapt, and to understand that what we will only achieve success in our curbside collection systems by reducing the amount of need of curbside collection systems. So if we can focus on those areas, we will have success. And the last thing I wish to mention as well too is that the statewide container levy is going to make a significant impact on our bins in Geelong, because it means any packaging product which actually is a container.
And Councillor Aitken, sorry, but the mute button has kicked in. Gone a little bit over your time. So I know any other councillors wish to comment on this one? Councillor Mansfield, then Councillor Grisbeck, then Councillor Contell. Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. I'd also like to voice my support for this particular item. This is part of our broader waste management strategy. It's about transitioning to a much better waste management system that's also in line with new state government requirements and the actions we've and goals that we have signed ourselves up to. In particular, we have three main objectives as part of our waste management strategy, and this really works towards two of those, which is to recover more resources. So that's getting more out of the things that we put in our bins and protecting the environment. But as Councillor Aitken has pointed out, the real challenge is how we stop things going into the bin in the first place. So that's the other of those three objectives, reducing waste in the first place. Councillor Aitken pointed out that we really do need some leadership on this from other levels of government around packaging requirements and regulation. We need companies and government to work on product stewardship. So that means when something is designed and manufactured, that those goods are built with the whole lifespan in consideration. So companies take on board repairing, or you return things to them and replace them, and they recycle the products themselves. But there's a lot we can do at a local level as well, and I think that's going to be the real challenge for local government, is how we can encourage and support communities to reduce the amount of waste they make. There are lots of community-led initiatives that are going on, repair cafes. In a lot of other countries, there's things like libraries for items that you only use infrequently. So all of us have kitchens and sheds full of things that we've only used once. And how handy would it be if you go to a library and just borrow that, random tool that you need to use on your garden once or twice and then return it. Supporting markets and opportunities for goods exchange, local produce, household, community gardens, all of these sort of initiatives are ways that we can look at reducing the amount of waste we generate in the first place. So I think that's the real challenge going forward as a council. How can we support the community at a local level? What can we do to reduce the amount of waste we produce in the first place?
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Next we had Deputy Mayor Grisbeck and then Councillor Contell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'd just like to point out that I think Geelong has offered itself as a trial site for the container deposit scheme. And what we would love to see is that Geelong can be a real opportunity for us to trial this service. I can see community groups and scouts and guides and all of those types of groups really making a really big push to collect those cans and bottles again at some point, and really get some of that money flowing back into the community like we used to do, I think, come 25 years ago. I'm showing my age now, Madam Mayor, so that's probably about it for me.
That's great. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, I know I'll sort of somewhat repeat what I was saying before, but I really encourage us and applaud us for continuing to invest in this space. I think this is really good use of investment going forward, because there's really no end to this circular economy and recycling. We've mentioned it before, the glass and the plastics that we remove from our waste, we're seeing it now used, globally in roads and bitumen. We're seeing plastics used in public open spaces with furniture, outdoor furniture and the like. Our playgrounds, the surfaces that we're walking on and the children are playing on is the rubber from tyres. We're able to reuse and grind concrete from old paving to create new footpaths. Clothing, there's a reuse possibility there with clothing and steel. Even in the industry that I'm in, which is maintaining equipment, we offer remanufactured components where you pull a component off your machine, you hand that component in and you get another component. They do that in the auto industry as well. So to continue to invest in this area is really a smart way of protecting our environment and caring for our environment, and it's tangible and you can see the results almost instantaneously. The other thing that we've seen in Europe, where they have container deposit schemes where you can put cans in or plastic containers and you get credits for that to use on other services, could be transport, could be rates, it could be a whole manner of things that you build up credits for by handing in the waste that we're talking about right here, right now, that we want to take out of our general waste. So there is no end to the circular economy and the impact, the positive impact that we can have on the environment by investing and thinking innovatively in this space.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. Any other councillors wish to comment on this one? Councillor Manane.
I'll make it very quick. I'd just like to draw an analogy, if I may. During this COVID-19 era, we've seen places around the world that have seen clear air because of a change in behaviour around motor vehicles and other items. Their cities are less smog and all the rest of it. And that's because of a change of behaviours. I really do think if we could substantially increase our buy local campaign in the same way, we would see a reduction in waste for very much the same reason. So I'll leave that with you.
Thank you, Councillor Manane. I'd just like to make a couple of very quick points with regard to Geelong being a trial site, or the Geelong region being a trial site. I certainly do have those conversations regularly with Sustainability Victoria and also with all our local MPs. So we're right out there saying that that's what we would like to do and we'd like to participate, particularly with a container deposit scheme. So we do keep the pressure on. And the other thing, as I think it was Councillor Aitken pointed out, putting just your recyclables in the yellow lidded bin and considering that job done, that's called wish cycling, which is actually not really anything particularly productive. So I think that's just something to hold in your head whenever you open that lid and put something in. Just think maybe I didn't need this in the first place. Okay, so we will go back to Councillor Nelson to close unless anyone else wants to make any comments. Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to say thanks to Guy and Rod and the team. They do a great job. It's been a steep learning curve over the last 12 months or so, but I've really enjoyed my time. And just wanted to thank my fellow councillors for their words. I certainly think it's a no-brainer that we need a container deposit scheme. People complained to me on a not so much daily basis now because of COVID, but always complain about tip fees. Why tip fees so much? Well, they're so much because the state government collects a levy. And they've collected so much, they've collected $800 million. And we're the only state in Australia that doesn't have a container deposit scheme, which is just ridiculous. So hopefully the paper might take this, and hopefully in a few years we might get a container deposit scheme, because we've certainly been asking our politicians for it, and we've got nothing so far. So Councillor Contell alluded to council using plastics and glass on roads, and that's certainly something that we are doing. Roslyn Road itself has 1.5 tonne of plastic in the road that would otherwise be used in landfill, which is great. You can't tell that there's plastic in there, but there is. There's 1.5 tonne of plastic in Roslyn Road. So this is a circular economy, as we've all talked about. I won't talk much more other than the packaging is coming in September, folks. So we'll get to talk about that in September. But wanted to thank Guy and Rod again, and I'll leave it there, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. We'll put this item to the vote. So all those in favour? Those against? Vote carried. Okay, item 8 is the proposed sale of Part 11, Macquarie Court, Corio. Deputy Mayor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. I'm requesting a deferral on this matter, just that I wanted to seek some further information from the CEO at this point, please.
Okay, thank you. All those in support of a deferral? Those against? No problem. They're carried. Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. That will be deferred.
We need a seconder first.
Oh, beg your pardon. Thank you.
I'm happy to second the original motion.
Councillor Aitken. Thank you. We'll note that in the minutes. Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Must have been distracted by item 9, which is the Transformation Program 2.0 Progress Report, June 2020. I'll be moving that one, seconded by Deputy Mayor Grisbeck. This is actually a noting of the progress of the city against the actions that were recommended in the 2016 Commission of Inquiry findings. There were 28 projects listed and 18 have now been completed. And since 2019, the program has moved into phase 2 to focus on those 10 remaining projects. And those 10 remaining projects were divided into 6 key focus areas of change: the civic precinct, digital modernisation, asset management, advocacy and stakeholder management, people and culture, and service planning and review. And we've got the key achievements for the last quarter, which include the launch of the new Have Your Say online engagement platform in May, which was excellent timing, given that we can't really do a whole lot of engagement face-to-face during the COVID restrictions. Also had the exploration of COVID-safe options for the Christmas program in 2020, because we figure that if you put the Christmas tree up and end up with thousands of people down at the waterfront, that's not a particularly safe option. So the team has actually explored some alternatives. Council has also endorsed the draft social infrastructure plan for public consultation, and that actually reached 44,573 people and saw a 95% of submissions supporting the policy. And that plan, of course, has since been endorsed. Planning permit and construction licence were issued for the civic precinct, as we know, at 137 Mercer Street. And when the city's leisure centres reopened in July after stage 3 restrictions, and before we went back in again, a temporary online booking solution was produced, and that went live to ensure that the pools, the classes and the gyms met their capacity limits and people were able to actually access those. Also, we had nearly 450 city employees have been asked for their insights into the organisation's response during the pandemic, so that's been really useful information. And the data strategy is also complete, and a governance framework has been agreed on. So they're just some of the key achievements just from the last quarter. I'll leave it there for now and let Councillor Grisbeck talk a little further. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You have quite capably mentioned all of those projects, and I probably don't have too much more to add. This document is co-signed by our municipal monitor, Peter Dorling, and he has really gave a big shout out to the organisation about the energy that they have put into this transformation project. And the commitment that the entire executive team and the CEO have given to this program. His words were that it is of measurable and tangible outcomes. Let me just quote that correctly. They have shown commitment to the entire program and its intent. The pursuit of measurable and tangible outcomes is now part of their standard work and reporting mechanisms. And I'd also like to say what a great job the organisation has done in this transformation. There is more work to be done, things like service planning and reviews, and I'm sure that would be coming to the next council at some point. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Well said, Councillor Grisbeck. Any other comments on this particular item? No, I would like to also, in closing, just thank our monitor, Peter Dorling, and also to Jude Monroe for her work as well, for managing this program and giving the feedback about how it is progressing. And as Councillor Grisbeck said, there are a few very positive comments from Peter Dorling about the progress. So thank you to him for his efforts and for his comments in the report. So we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 10 is a contractual matter that we need to see in confidential. May I please have a mover and seconder consider this matter in confidential? Move Councillor Nelson, seconded Councillor Sullivan. Thank you. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 11 is also a contractual matter that needs to be dealt with confidentially. May I have a mover and seconder to go into confidential? Moved Councillor Mason, seconded Councillor Nelson. Thank you. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. That brings us to section C, which is the notice of motion brought to the chamber by, or the Zoom meeting, by Councillor Cantell.
Mayor Asher, can I just call for the suspension of standing orders just so we can make a tribute to a significant Geelong person, please, before we enter into a notice of motion, if that's acceptable to other councillors?
Yes, Councillor Cantell, and that's fine with me. And you did ask me earlier. Yep, I think that's very, very worthy. Go for it.
Look, as most people probably know, last Thursday, Geelong lost one of its true leaders and influencers in the passing of Graham Goldsworthy AM. Graham was the father of modern tourism and hospitality sector in not just Geelong, but our region and including the Great Ocean Road. Graham was a pioneer of the Jeff Betts and John Wade Lindsay's and Target era, where Graham was actually one of the young guns that worked under both Jeff and John, and he eventually rose to the position of chief buyer for Target Australia. Graham was also a pioneer of the restaurant trade in Geelong. With John Wade, he was involved with Long John's restaurant, and for over 30 years, he was synonymous with Fishermere Pier restaurant, which we all know of and love down on the waterfront of Geelong. Graham was also a pioneer with the idea of collective tourism and marketing and promotion. In fact, he formed an incredible partnership with Roger Grant to create what was originally Geelong Otway Tourism to become the successful organisation that it does today. Graham was also a significant pioneer in hospitality training with the Gordon and work experience people throughout Geelong. He was an incredibly generous man with the community and supported numerous sectors of Geelong, in particular the disability sector in Geelong, and very much so with Geelong College and the school and community associated with Geelong College. Graham was a member of the Order of Australia, which is a significant title. It's the third highest level that you can get as an AM, and that reflected the significant work that it's my privilege to pay respects to Graham, pass our condolences on to his family throughout Geelong. The one thing I didn't like about Goldie was he barracked for Collingwood, but there's always one bad thing about somebody. But we won't hold that against him. All I would say is that he was a friend of many, including myself. He was a confidant of many, and he was one of those people that truly was a leader in the Geelong community. Rest in peace, Goldie, and thank you for everything you did to the Geelong community. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. That was very heartfelt words. Well done. And condolences on behalf of the Council to Graham Goldworthy's family. Okay, we will now move into the notice of motion and being brought to the Zoom meeting by Councillor Contell. This is a proposed COVID-19 free parking in all on and off-street casual car parking places in the CBD Geelong. May I have moved by Councillor Contell, seconded by Deputy Mayor Grisbeck. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Contell.
And before I start, Madam Mayor, before my time starts, can you please just make a note of an amendment that's really just an admin oversight, that in the body of the report in the 7th paragraph and also in the first recommendation, the date should actually read the 31st of August to the 31st of December. Yep. Because in the urgent notice of motion, you might recall he had referred to a previous date, and so that's now changed, obviously.
Thank you. That's been noted, and that will be minuted as well. So your time can start now, Councillor Contell.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, it is disappointing, I guess, that whilst the state government and our Premier, Daniel Andrews, has declared Victoria to be in a state of disaster, and this week has also indicated that it's more than likely that Victoria needs to remain in a state of emergency for another 12 months. Melbourne Metro's in stage 4 lockdown, and Geelong, as we know, is unfortunately in stage 3 lockdown. Yet here we have a COVID-19 community support initiative that we really could have debated 2 weeks ago. However, the community have been forced to continue to pay for parking in the CBD. Some of these community members are our essential workers, being health workers on the front line. And this is obviously challenging, given this is one of the most difficult times and challenging times that any of us have ever seen. This notice of motion, Madam Mayor, as you've already said, is to approve the waiver of all parking fees in council-owned facilities on and off street in the CBD from the 31st of August to the 31st of December. Notice of motion is about providing financial relief to our precious community and to our frontline essential workers. It's about supporting the CBD-based local businesses who do continue to be heavily impacted by the pandemic. We all know that. And in fact, it's in line with an important program that you, Madam Mayor, launched this week, being It's Our Backyard, which is intended to support local businesses. That's why it's so important that free parking remains until December, to continue to support these businesses as we progress, hopefully, out of COVID-19. And extremely important is from a health and safety perspective, and as we try to limit the further spread of COVID-19, it's about removing the need for community members to actually make any physical contact with parking meters. This is a huge part of it. Now, councils and shires all over in Victoria, including the City of Melbourne, have introduced levels of free parking and removal of time constraints to help the struggling community. Our time is now. Our time is now to really show some care and support. This is not political. This is having this notice of motion adopted unanimously tonight is imperative to demonstrate to the community and our frontline workers who are working tirelessly to try to keep us safe and healthy that we do have empathy, that we do feel their pain, that we are in this together, and that we do have their back. And such is the urgency of this matter that officers last week or 2 weeks ago introduced a warning system to vehicles that are found in the breach of time limits in the CBD, just to offer more support and reduce infringement. So council is feeling for everyone that's out there. They know that people are doing it tough during the pandemic, and we do really want to help. And so today, we're really trying to demonstrate that genuine respect for the community. And Madam Mayor, I hope that the debate can be respectful and that we do not draw analogies to frivolous matters out there, such as things of ice cream costs and the like. Let's keep this very, very serious, because it is a serious matter that we are dealing with, which is the livelihoods and the struggling community that are out there.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. Deputy Mayor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. I might just reserve my right, please, Mayor Asher. I can't do that on notice of motions, or I can?
Yes.
Yes, I'd like to do that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. Any other comments on this notice of motion? No? Councillor Mason. Then Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. We're at a pivot point where we can be seen as a not-so-smart city, or continue to be seen as a clever and creative city of design, aware of our sustainability framework. World's best practice in disaster response has two fundamental principles: target limited resources to those most in need, design emergency interventions which foster easy transition to development plans, in this case, our council plan. Universal free parking does neither. It's a blunt tool. It doesn't target needy sectors efficiently. It's what's known as a quick and dirty response, normally only applied when there's no other option. It works against our revitalised city vision, commercial operators, and the user pays principles. It's unsustainable. We've got better options. We can implement new targeted comprehensive community and business packages. Let's use our funds efficiently and keep our deficit down and reserves for the long haul. The city's invested over $5 million in smart city parking management technology, hands-free, COVID-free, cash-free. Set the timer from inside the car. Parking fees can be dialed up or down as the need requires. Compliance can be monitored. With this technology dormant, it's back to the dinosaur days and the chalk marker. I'm very disappointed with this notice of motion. To me, it's populist. No comprehensive public report, no transparency, no best practice. Since 2006, officer and externally commissioned reports have recommended against free parking. How many people know this? Where is the evidence that the free parking increases trader revenue? As I said, I'm really disappointed in this notice of motion. It supports poor practice and a pre-COVID agenda in an inefficient response to a declared state of disaster.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Murray, you were next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's just disappointing that this issue has become quite divisive in this council, which is so disappointing. We seem to have debated this free parking issue on a monthly basis. And what I said last time, where is the evidence that supports the notion that free parking is a good stimulus for the CBD? Why can't we wait for the parking strategy information and data, or in fact the data on the recent free parking trial? It's a fact. Not all traders are in favour of free parking. Sure, there is support, but do we know the numbers for and against? No, we don't. In any other important decision like this one, we would have put it out for public consultation or surveyed the retailers. There's nothing here with this one. It's worth noting that there's no encouraging support from the Chamber of Commerce or the Committee for Geelong, two major players in this space. If you go looking for evidence or facts to support an argument either way, the most recent is the Car Parking Strategy 2017 and the Parking Strategy Review 2018. And they included comparisons with other local government areas, being Ballarat, Bendigo, Launceston, Gold Coast, and the key finding being that paid parking forms a key element in the management of parking, with the most common reason to facilitate turnover of parking spaces. City of Newcastle had it. It was a negative effect. They went back to paid parking. Most recently, the City of Warrnambool brought free parking in for the COVID, reverted back to paid parking. We have a car parking strategy with 2,500 responses, where 68% considered paying for parking was fair. And the City of Melbourne has been mentioned. The Lord Mayor, Sally Capp, in April, when they had free parking and had to bring it back because parking fees were needed once again to move the cars along and support city traders as more people flock back to the city. That's Sally Capp. And she went further. Vehicles are now returning to the city, and traders and residents have called for the greater turnover of car parks and businesses to welcome customers and visitors back. I believe there's two ways to approach this vote. I reckon there's the popular way or the responsible way. And I think really people do understand the need for this system. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Any other comments on this one? Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. Look, for me, the question on this one really is a simple one. Is this the best way to support businesses in the community as a COVID support measure, which is what it's being presented as? And based on the evidence that has been and the arguments that have been made and presented, as well as further information that I've gathered through thinking about this item, that I understand. The passion behind this that Councillor Contell has brought, but based on all of that, I don't believe that this is the best way to support community and business during this COVID period. We have already provided significant relief through free parking, and based on that, I haven't seen that that's led to a huge increase in return to foot traffic in the CBD, because the COVID restrictions really limit what people can do anyway. In terms of the comments that were made about the hospital workers, thankfully we've to date only had a very, very small number of cases present to hospital with COVID in Geelong. However, we early on in the pandemic developed a plan with Barwon Health to support frontline workers with respect to parking. Should we see at any point a major surge in the number of patients with COVID attending hospital, which would naturally place a lot of pressure on parking around the hospital precinct. But to date, we haven't actually experienced that. Looking at other bits of evidence, other councillors have already mentioned the feedback we've had from business and various representative groups, which hasn't been supportive of free parking. Some are supportive, but it's not universal. And interestingly, we look at other places that have looked at free parking as a COVID response. Most recently, Warrnambool trialled it and have wound it back in response to negative feedback from traders. So I just look at, what else could we be doing to support our community and businesses during this time? Is this the best way? I think we could be doing more to support those who are most in need and look at how we can maintain and better provide our essential services as a council. For me, this isn't the best way.
Thanks, Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Manane.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, this financial year, Council made a very positive statement about not running trading surpluses, but instead we made a very deliberate policy of running a deficit to support the community through COVID-19 crisis. And more than that, we did not put a limit on that deficit. We really made the decision that we would make whatever investments that were needed to be made, they would be made. Understanding that the deficit at some time would have to be dealt with, and we would have to look at accepting higher levels of indebtedness for council, sell some assets, or make a reduction or saving in services. Whatever would have to be done, we would do it because we were going to make investments through this COVID period, and I believe we've done that. Now, we haven't talked about how we're going to deal with this deficit. That is obviously going to be something that the next council will have to deal with. So I think it's very important that we should test the value of all money we're spending, because it means there'll be consequences down the track. And of the $10 million of initiatives that we've already provided, 50% of that spend has already been on free parking. So we've made a very, very significant contribution. And if you look at all of the other investments that we've made, a lot of those also touch on businesses, both in the CBD and across the municipality. Unfortunately, we can't measure any of these free parking initiatives. There's been no reporting that have identified value, that either statistical or otherwise. There's been no recommendation from council officers that convinced us of the depth of the value of this investment. There's been no evidence provided that is creating increased trade for shopkeepers or other benefits. There's just been no evidence. So we're very much in the dark. And over the past month, there's been a growing number of voices casting doubt on the effectiveness and value of these investments. And we're here to have to defend them because we've made those decisions. I recently sat in on the CBD task force meetings, and I heard some really good new ideas, and I heard some significant and some practical ones that we've already thought of or are looking at. And these are investments we could make in the CBD to help businesses, to help retailers, to help shoppers, but we need money to do it. And I think that we're going to need to be investing in programs, COVID-19 relief programs, for a long time to come. It's not just today. There's going to be more to the end of this year, and there's going to be more in next year. So I think that we need to make sure that we're getting value for what we're doing. I don't think we're getting value in putting any more money into free parking. I think if this notice of motion had been around just until stage 3 or stage 4, maybe it would have got a bit more hearing. But I'm not sure that taking this out to December is necessary. Notwithstanding, even if we did do it to the end of stage 3 or 4.
Gone to mute, Councillor Manane. You've just gone over time slightly there. Okay. Any other councillors wish to comment on this item? Councillor Aitken.
Thank you very much, Mayor Asher. Yeah, look, I suspect the community is confused about what we're actually debating tonight. You know, one councillor has said we seem to debate it every week. Well, in fact, 2 weeks ago, we weren't able to debate it. So that's actually why it's come back for that particular councillor. And also there's a lot of emotive language and statements to try to create emotion about this particular issue. The reality is we're actually talking about parking fees and parking fines during a COVID crisis environment, which at latest count, there were 31 municipalities in Melbourne who have not enforcing parking fines and fees throughout their municipality, and Geelong's actually just joining that. This recommendation that's coming before us is actually reintroducing the restriction removals and parking restriction removals that we had in place during April to June of this year when COVID stage 3 was imposed in the Geelong region. We're back in COVID stage 3, and it is responsible for us to assess again what we should be doing. We're actually requesting the organisation to reenact that provisions that were put in place in May and June of this year. Look, all I can do is apologise to the community that's actually watching this and been over the last 2 to 3 months, and in particular the last 2 weeks. I apologise to them, and I simply say yes, I support parking fines and fees should be removed during COVID crisis time, and it is the appropriate response for municipalities to undertake, and Geelong is just in unison with the decision that it made previously and in unison with 31 other municipalities that have car parking income revenue streams as part of their service delivery around Victoria.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Any other councillors? Councillor Howard?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, this is obviously a discussion that's created a lot of thought-provoking comments, and they'll continue for some time, no doubt, whichever way we continue to track on this particular issue. But car parking fees, they amount to a substantial part of our budget, and it is a lot of money that could be used directly to help where it's needed the most. I think that's been touched on. Even the recent CBD task force meetings certainly discussed parking issues, but they were not deemed the most pressing issues. Things that came up around what was really important are things like homelessness issues, addressing Geelong's suicide rates, for example, with Headspace and the issues that they're facing, addressing increase in family violence, assisting aged care facilities where our council workers have been working, food relief for those in need today, being vigilant during COVID stage 19 and in stage 3, stay at home and wear a mask when you need to. These are things that are urgent, facilitating job opportunities. I think this is where our focus needs to be. In about 2005, 2006, the Geelong spend in the CBD was hemorrhaging, and we dropped about 17% with local money going up the road to Werribee Plaza, DFOs at Essendon and South Bank, and Westfields were soaking up shoppers' cash as they started a more strategic presence around the country. And what really changed was also the actual shopping offer in and around Geelong, and the CBD shopper had to adapt as we made changes to how our CBD would look. But free parking was never blamed or even discussed for the shopping demise of Central Geelong. Now, I get the angle that's been taken about the need to help those who are struggling. Yeah, we clearly understand that we have a very strong COVID package. It's also about clearly identifying what's the best way we can give that particular help financially. And as I say, the car parking has also changed how council needed to provide more people to come into the CBD and into the CBD to work, shop, and now demand for living space is increasing. So we need to adopt a far better strategy than what we currently have. And if car parking fees are such a major problem, why do we have a waiting list for over 200 cars for the city car park? Why do people pay over $10 million a year each year to park in the CBD? And why are car parking operators and developers constantly looking at car park investment options in the CBD? It's a really vexed issue that we haven't come to grips with, and we haven't really got it right, I don't think, at the moment. We're using it as a bit of a tool, I think, in a manner that's not conducive to good operations. Council should be getting out of off-street car parking as a business and leave it to the market to operate. That's a discussion for the future. And use of the sale of off-street car parking sites to continue better improving the experience with council and the whole of the CBD environment. I think this is where we should be putting our energies, and how we remodel the CBD with other options of public transport, green spine, residential development, and our city deal. I think I'm just not convinced that free parking is actually helping us do this. I get why we're having the discussion, but I'm not seeing it's actually helping us.
Thanks, Councillor Howard. Any other councillors want to speak on this one? Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wasn't going to speak, but it's getting a bit. Some people are saying things that are completely untrue, or that they've themselves have gone on and produced notices of motion without reports. So I don't get that. You know, it's probably going to cost around $840,000. It's a COVID pack. It's part of a COVID package. It's not something that we're looking to do forever. You know, it says we're doing it until the end of December, or maybe if the world turns around and COVID disappears within 3 months, but I don't think that's going to happen. So it's a short-term thing, just like the COVID support. The CBD task force, I think it was 4 supports of free parking, half-hour free parking, 2-hour free parking, in the one that I was at. This is about, for me, it's about doing the right thing by traders, doing the right thing by our frontline workers. The hospital is quite busy. I work just right next to the hospital, and it's quite busy with cars going all around there. This is not about value. If it was about value, why are we giving away millions in COVID support? This is about doing the right thing, and that's why I support it. But I think councillors are trying to make it a motive issue, and that's really disappointing. You know, we're trying to do the right thing by our community. At least that's what I'm trying to do. So that's why I support this.
Thanks, Councillor Nelson. Any other councillors wish to speak on this one? I'll just add too, this is a COVID package item as far as I'm concerned. This isn't about a long-term car parking strategy or any other discussion. This is about a COVID package item, and it's as much about morale and the spirit of generosity as anything. There is no turnover needed at the moment. Geelong CBD is very, very quiet, pretty much empty. And I'm not sure if it is the best way to support businesses, but it's certainly one of many ways that we are attempting to support businesses and the community with COVID package items. So, that's the way I view it. I don't see why this one is picked out as one that's not a good idea, and yet we say yes to many that we don't necessarily have evidence of success yet, because we are in a world of unprecedented activities and situations, and we haven't seen most of these things before. So the loss estimate in the budget that's been referred to is nowhere near accurate, and it's because it's nowhere near as high as it has been in terms of parking demand. So the parking fees and fines would naturally not be as per the budget. The budget was set before we had stage 3. So this is, I think, as Councillor Nelson pointed out, going back to what we had with the stage 3 restrictions the first time. So this is purely a COVID item through to the end of December. So I support it on that basis. If there's no other, Councillor Grisbeck had reserved the right. So, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is good to be able to go towards the end, because you can sort of address some of the things. And look, I do agree with Councillor Harwood in the fact that council probably shouldn't be in the parking business in terms of off-street parking. The reason that we as in individuals do need to pay a lot of money for parking is because we would like to park close or near to our work, and there is no public transport for me necessarily that gets me to work and gives me the convenience to pop in and out of things when I need, either with the children or with family. I think we can't compare this particular COVID response to the things for social issues. We are already doing amazing things in food relief. We have put $1.7 million towards food relief this year. We are already doing some amazing things and working with people in the homeless section. I know our Community Life Division have got great relationships and doing everything they can to help all levels of government support those issues. So we can't compare it to what we to other social issues, because we are already supporting those other social issues. And if anybody thinks of a social issue that we're not helping, I'd be lovely to, if you could speak to myself, because I think, you know, council has really stretched beyond what its remit is, and rightly so. We should be supporting, you know, some of those real cultural issues within the city. All levels of government have got to run deficit budgets. That is the way we are. We are in a really unprecedented, I know that word is overused a lot, but we are really in unprecedented, I can't even say it now, Madam Mayor. You know what I'm talking about. We can't wait. We need it now. These car parking strategies, which will come to council, and I'm sure we will debate them, but this is coming before us now. This is a different time. Those other strategies, either we've had previous or we're going to have in the future, do not take into account that we're in a COVID situation that we never predicted would happen. I think because we're in lockdown, I think we need to give our community a break. I think the figures that are quoted about the loss that we will be making because of free parking is overinflated personally. We would never be getting the revenue as it currently sits to that amount right now when we're in stage 3 lockdown. The time limits will still be there. We need to do all we can to really help our community. Now, just quickly, I've got a story. There was a lady who was returning to her vehicle after, because frontline workers are not just hospital workers. We've got essential services like Centrelink and you know, radio broadcasters, etc., that use these services. There's a lady who parked her car and the street was completely empty. She put her car in there. She came back to her car with a $80 fine on it. She was in tears. Her husband had just lost his job. She was an essential service worker with Centrelink and spent all day on the phone to people that are really doing it tough. I think it's the least we can do. And in that vein, I support Councillor Contell's notice of motion. Thank you.
Well said, Madam Deputy. Councillor Contell to close.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks for the comments. I'm flabbergasted, to be quite honest. I can't believe how the point is being missed here. To suggest we're in the dark. We are in the dark. Are you kidding me? We're in a state of emergency. We're in a state of disaster, and we're talking about strategies that have been in draft for 3 years that we've been on council, and then we're going to wait for a parking strategy to tell us what to do during COVID? Are you kidding me? Honestly, we've got to take action now. We've got to help our community and care for them. World's best practices in local government, in my world, is listening to the community. Have a look at the 93.9 Facebook page in the Geelong Addy. Hundreds of comments. Community will tell you what world's best practices are. Support us during these struggling times. And, hey, it's not the best idea. We need to invest in other things. We need other ideas. What are they? Bring them forward. I look forward to the notices of motion. I'll embrace any idea you bring forward. I've seen none to this point. This is what we need to do today. This is not about strategy. This is not about the next 3 years. This is about supporting people that are struggling right here, right now. Who knows how long stage 3 and stage 4 are here for? We don't know. We're not fortune tellers. And so what this will do as of tomorrow or as of next week will relieve the financial burden for some people. There was a comment made about the impact it will have on our budget. Don't worry about our budget. Worry about our community's budget and the impact these charges are having on them, on our essential service workers, on our people that have to come into the CBD to do work and to look after us. And what else it will do, it will allow our CEO to also allow permit holders, give them the opportunity to suspend parking permits into the future as well. And it'll complement the 1,000-odd parking permits that we've issued to Barwon Health University. So I look forward to the remaining weeks ahead that we have on council before we go into caretaker mode to see all these great, wonderful ideas that everyone has that we can support the community with. And you know what? We wasted 2 weeks. 2 weeks for not debating this item. Not one person called me for a question to ask me anything more about it. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. On that note, we'll put this notice of motion to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Okay, motion carried.
It won't surprise you that I'll ask for a division, Madam Mayor, please.
Okay, those in favour? Councillors Asher, Sullivan, Nelson, Grisbeck, Contell, Aitken. Those against? Councillors Manane, Mason, Mansfield, Murray and Harwood. Thank you. Okay, moving to section D, the Assembly of Council. May I please have a mover and seconder for the Assembly of Council to be moved by Councillor Aitken, thank you, and seconded Councillor Sullivan. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. All those against? All those against. All those in favour? Jumping ahead of myself. Okay, those against? Carried. And may I please have a mover and seconder for the planning delegations? Moved by Councillor Sullivan, seconded Councillor Mason. Thank you. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. And I need a mover and seconder to close the meeting to the public to go into confidential. Moved Councillor Grisbeck, seconded Councillor Nelson. Thank you. All those in favour? Those against? Thank you. Carried.